Welcome to the Vegas Insider channel here on YouTube for Friday, April 16, 2021. Kevin Rogers with you. Hope you are having a great day as we have a big weekend coming up and a lot of baseball and NBA to go over for tonight and also looking back at yesterday. So a lot to get to. But first, before we begin, as always, the reminder about our daily insider contest. It's very easy to enter. I shouldn't say it's easy to win. You got to pick a winner. But here's how it goes. First, on our YouTube channel, on this video, below in the comments, you have to be a subscriber, and also you have to have a user ID at vegasinsider.com. If you have a Vegas Insider ID, leave your ID and also your best bet for tonight. It could be in Major League Baseball, it could be in the NBA, it could be in the NHL, it could be anything. It could be a side, a money line, a total, it could be a first inning play, it could be a first 5 innings play, it could be a first half play, any of that. It can't be a live play. That's the one thing you can't do. It can't be a live play, but you got to have it before the game. If you are not if you do not have an ID on vegasinsider.com, it's very simple to get and it's free, so you don't have to pay anything for it. You go to the big yellow button on our homepage that says register. You click on that, and that will take you to this page, free membership, the first one, register now. You enter your ID, enter an ID, create one for yourself, and a password, email, first, last name, and then now you're eligible to win our prize. What's the prize? It is 7 days, a 7-day package of a handicapper's picks on our site. Any handicapper of your choosing, our marketing team will get in touch with you, and you can choose any handicapper, their picks for 7 days free. So that is the prize if you win our contest, which is basically drop a winner for tonight in our comments section below this video with your user ID from vegasinsider.com and your selection. Also, you got to be a subscriber to our YouTube channel. It's very easy. Click on the subscribe button. You'll get reminders of when the videos come, as well as our free pick videos. We have one for the Clippers and the Sixers up. We have a couple baseball picks up on our YouTube channel for tonight. So check all of that out. And we had a winner yesterday. Our winner had the Diamondbacks Nationals over first 5 innings, which was done in the second inning because you had a ton of runs scored in that game. And with that being said, let's get right to it and look back at yesterday's baseball before we look ahead to tonight. And our winner actually had the over of, I believe it was 4.5 runs in the first 5 innings, and hit that already in the first inning. The Nationals and the Diamondbacks combined for 7 runs in the first, and then Arizona exploded for 7 in the top of the second. Patrick Corbin, who's been absolutely horrendous for the Nationals dating back to last season, I believe now it's 10 consecutive starts he's gone without a win, which is pretty crazy. And his former team, who was coming off of back-to-back losses at home to Oakland, they light him up in the first 2 innings for 10 runs, and Arizona wins at 11-6 as a heavy underdog there. So good win for the D-backs, and also for the Nationals. They return home after taking 2 of 3 from the Cardinals, and they put up a big clunker. Meanwhile, the Marlins, they almost had a 4-game sweep of the Braves at Truist Park. You see, Miami was up 3-0 after 4. Braves came back and took the lead. Marlins came back and took the lead, but then things fell apart in the 9th inning for the Marlins as they had to face the top of the order. Ronald Acuna Jr. had a single. Freddie Freeman got on base, and eventually the Braves tied it and then won it with 2 runs in the bottom of the 9th inning. And Atlanta actually avoids a sweep that they could not afford to lose 4 games to the Marlins. So the Marlins end up taking 3 of 4. That's not a bad job by them. San Diego, they bounced back from a couple losses to Pittsburgh, and they beat the Pirates 8-3. So Chris Paddock was dominant, and he was staked to a 6-0 lead early, and the Padres cruised. They get the Dodgers coming up tonight at home. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Speaking of LA, I'll tell you, this one really stinks. If you had Colorado run line, Colorado gets swept by San Francisco and LA, and the Rockies took a 2-0 lead in that one. They went up 5-3, so you think, all right, even if I have the run line, I'm in good shape. LA scores 4 in the 7th. So LA won all 3 games from Colorado, all in the run line, all as a heavy favorite. And yeah, the Rockies, who played all right against the Diamondbacks in their last home series, and then they now get swept by the Giants and Dodgers. So obviously Colorado, they are who we thought they were, and they will probably be a last place team in the National League West, and LA just continues to roll because they're the best team in baseball. The Red Sox had a 9-game winning streak going into yesterday at Minnesota, and the Twins desperately needed a win because they've had a horrific homestand so far. They were up 3-0. Red Sox tied it with a 3-run double in the top of the 8th inning, but then won it on a walk-off in the bottom of the 9th. So Minnesota avoids a sweep there, but Boston's still playing very well. And the AL Central, just a complete mess right now. Twins and White Sox have struggled. Royals playing well. Tigers playing well. So the division's upside down, at least through the first few weeks. Cleveland, after getting no hit a few nights ago by the White Sox, they come back, down 1-0, but they couldn't get their offense going until the 6th, and they beat the White Sox 4-2. So Cleveland ends up getting a 4-game split with Chicago, and the Indians, who had to face the gauntlet of Lucas Giolito, Dallas Keuchel, Lance Lynn, and the 4th pitcher, Carlos Rodon, no-hit them. And the Indians' offense, we know, isn't very stellar. They don't have Francisco Lindor anymore. He's with the Mets. But the Indians end up splitting that 4-game set with Chicago. And the Indians actually playing all right after they lost the first 2 games of the season to Detroit. The Rangers, how about them? Going to Tampa Bay. They lost the first game 1-0, and they win the final 3 from the Rays. That's a really good job by the Rangers. And I talked about yesterday with Jordan Lyles. He's so up and down. He has a big underdog win against the Royals already, and now against the Rays last night, and a 6-4 win for Texas. So they're actually playing better than anticipated, and Tampa Bay's offense just nowhere to be found at times. They took 2 from the Yankees, and they really have done nothing in the last now 5 games, or 1-4. Toronto loses at Kansas City 7-5. The Royals almost gave away this game. They were up 7-0. Vlad Guerrero Jr. hit an absolute bomb. But the Blue Jays lose that game. Their comeback comes up short. And the Royals right now playing well. They've won 3 in a row. Detroit, really no shock there. They lose at Oakland 8-4. And the Athletics continue to play well after their 0-6 start. Detroit, they swept Houston on the road, but they fall back down to earth last night in that defeat to the A's. Seattle took 2 from Baltimore on the road. And the Mariners take 3 of 4 actually from the Orioles, 4-2 and 2-1. So a couple unders cashing there for Seattle, and they come back to play Houston tonight. Phillies and Mets, they got rained out. So Jacob deGrom did not have a chance to lose yesterday. He'll have a chance to lose tonight, and we'll talk about that in a second. Braves and the Cubs, they're going to get started in just a few hours from Wrigley Field. Atlanta, off that win they needed desperately against the Marlins yesterday, but they're still below 500, and they have not been great on the road either. The Cubs, they've been an unmitigated mess offensively, and Zach Davies will take the mound for Chicago today. Again, a very, 2 disappointing teams so far. I mean, the Cubs more expected than the Atlanta Braves, but the Braves can't be losing 3 at home to the Marlins. The Nationals will try to bounce back tonight with Max Scherzer on the mound. Nationals at 3-7 so far, and yeah, they've been duped a couple games because of that COVID situation to start the season. But for Washington, they're 3-7, and Max Scherzer, he was lit up in the opener against the Braves. He lost his last start to the Dodgers, so he's going to try to get back on track here. Arizona at 5-8, not bad, and they did start the season 0-3, so 5-5 the last 10 for Arizona. That's not terrible considering they don't have their best player playing, Ketel Marte. Christian Walker, their first baseman, he's hurt right now, and the Diamondbacks really, They've had Zach Gallen make one start. So they don't have a great rotation. 5-5 actually isn't a terrible job for the Diamondbacks. The Cardinals and the Phillies from Philadelphia, and this just shows you how things can go sideways that quickly, that the Phillies started off the season on fire. They swept the Braves. They took 2 of 3 from the Mets at home, and then things kind of fell apart on the road. They lost all 3 to the Mets. They dropped 2 of 3 to the Braves. They should have lost all 3 to the Braves. You had that controversial call at home plate Sunday night. But St. Louis, they've been up and down too, and they just lost 2 of 3 to Washington. They had a big blowout win, but that was the sandwich game. The 2 outer games, they didn't play very well, and again, these two, Carlos Martinez has not been good for the Cardinals this year. Zach Eflin is not a bad pitcher for the Phillies, but they're favored here. I don't know how you trust them considering their offensive issues they've had recently. The Giants and the Marlins, they meet in Miami tonight, and San Francisco, look at them, 8-4 so far on the season. Anthony DeSclafani gets the start for the Giants. And San Francisco, they took 2 of 3 from Cincinnati. They swept the Rockies series. They've been very good. And I think we know there's a class difference when you look at the Dodgers, the Padres, then the Giants in the West. And San Francisco, yes, they are the 3rd best team, no doubt, in the NL West. They won't win the division. No one except the Dodgers, unless LA has a rash of injuries. San Diego's probably not winning that division. But San Francisco will be in the playoff mix coming up this season. And they were in the playoff mix last year without Buster Posey. He's back now. And the Giants, Johnny Cueto is now in the IL. That's not good for them, but they still have been very good. And they're laying 130 against the Marlins, who have struggled a bit at home. They got swept by the Cardinals. They lost 2 of 3 to Tampa Bay. You see that record 1-5 at home, so I don't know how much I trust the Marlins here in this spot, especially off that walk-off loss to the Braves yesterday. Pittsburgh and Milwaukee, they meet up, and the Brewers, it just feels like they've been so up and down. Christian Yelich is hurt, and Milwaukee at 7-5. Pittsburgh, in spite of getting blown out by San Diego yesterday, 5-8 is pretty respectable considering they're supposed to win about 60-something games this year. So that's not a bad job. JT Brubaker, he has pitched well for the Pirates. It's not a great staff. And Adrian Hauser as a favorite, I don't know how much I trust him there tonight, but the Pirates and Brewers meeting up for the first time this season. Oh, now Jacob deGrom laying 280 at Colorado. The Rockies have lost, 6 in a row, and they're 3-10. The Mets off getting rained out yesterday against the Phillies. I mean, with Jacob deGrom, they're 5-3 overall, the Mets, and they've lost both of the starts. And he's been great in both. I mean, you can't blame him at all. It's on the offense. For some reason, when Jacob deGrom takes them out and the Mets decide not to be good offensively, they decide that. I feel like they do because this is not this year. This goes back to last year and the year before and the year before, when you see some of his numbers that in losses where Jacob deGrom's ERA is just still ridiculous. This guy doesn't get knocked around. And he can have a 2-point-something ERA even in losses because you look at the losses, they're losing games 1-0, 2-1. And you say, just get a couple runs for me. I'm not asking that much. Gave up 1 run in his last start against the Marlins. They lose 1-0. So Chichi Gonzalez goes for Colorado. It's not a great option for the Rockies. You would think with as bad as the Rockies' bats have been that the Mets would get 4 or 5 tonight to help out deGrom. Dodgers and the Padres. That is the premier game in the National League tonight. Premier game in baseball. I mean, you have a playoff rematch from last year. LA knocked San Diego out in the NLDS. Walker Buehler goes for LA. Admittedly, I don't know much about Ryan Weathers, as the Padres passed Darvish and Blake Snell, and Snell didn't last the first inning a few nights ago against Pittsburgh. Now Ryan Weathers gets an opportunity here. The Dodgers a little beat up offensively, but it feels like next man up, and they're fine. LA at 11-2, and they're laying a nice price at San Diego, the first of 19 meetings between those two teams. Rays and Yankees, they hook up for the second straight weekend. Tampa Bay took 2 of 3 from New York last weekend at Tropicana Field, and now the Yankees back at home. Yankees are 5-7. I mean, look at these two teams. Yankees and Rays both in the playoffs last year. Both of them met up in that ALDS in which Tampa Bay knocked off New York, and both were under 500. I mean, they're not playing well at all. Again, long season, but the Yankees, they lost a few to Toronto. They got to get back on track. But Aaron Boone, he had the health issue. He had the pacemaker put in, and that's obviously not helping either. That him not there. The Battle of the Sox in Boston. Red Sox and White Sox. Look at Boston. They were 0-3, and now they've won 9 of 10. They won 9 straight before losing to Minnesota yesterday. Chicago's been up and down, but they're 5-1 off a loss this year. Nick Pivetta, nephew of Dick Pivetta, he is on the mound for the Red Sox tonight. He's gotten great run support. 11 and 14 runs he has received in his 2 starts so far against Tampa Bay and Baltimore. Dylan Cease Fire, he is in for Chicago tonight. And I mentioned the White Sox, a stellar rotation. Now they're going to the number 5 guy against the Red Sox. But short line kind of makes me question why it's that short. I would side with Chicago here against Boston. And Chicago's getting a little healthier. Tim Anderson's back in the lineup. And the White Sox think are worth a look in that one. Baltimore's at Texas. Mike Foltynewicz put his name in a spelling bee. He pitched really well his last time out against San Diego. I don't think he'll pitch well again. And this Baltimore team, 5-8, it's so tricky because Baltimore started 3-0, but yet they're 2-8 their last 10. So the record's a little deceiving. That doesn't look that bad for them. But Texas off the 3 wins at Tampa Bay. Now you're favored. You don't get Texas as a favorite that often. I don't know how much I trust the Rangers here coming back home. And the Orioles off the tough series against the Mariners where they lost 3 of 4. And also they play 4 7-inning games. So now you're back to a 9-inning game. And look, some teams don't thrive in that. And I know Baltimore's supposed to be last place in the East. But Baltimore is this short of a dog. You say, well, that's not much. But also Texas is a favorite. I don't know how much I trust them. Toronto's at Kansas City. They continue their series. The Blue Jays, a short favorite against the Royals. And Mike Minor on the mound for the Royals, 7-4. I mean, look, that's a good home record, 5-2 so far. Toronto's just been really up and down. And again, they're displaced this year. They're in Dunedin, Florida, outside of Tampa. They're not, they haven't played at home in over a year and a half. They played in Buffalo last year. They're in Dunedin this year. So an obvious disadvantage for them. Still a pretty good young core. And the Blue Jays trying to get back to 500. The late action in the American League, the Twins and Angels. So Minnesota, they play better on the road than at home, and probably getting away from home is a good thing with all the distractions, with what's been going on, with the protests and other things in Minnesota. Probably a good time for them to get out of town. And the Angels have Andrew Haney going tonight. The Angels at 7-5, and they just lost the last 2 at Kansas City. Detroit and Oakland. And Oakland, 6-7, is actually not terrible because they were 0-6. And now they've won 6 of 7. And Detroit had won 3 in a row before losing last night. Frankie Montez, a huge favorite tonight, laying 185. That's big. The Astros and Mariners, they are the final American League game tonight. Jose Urquidy goes for the Astros, and you see Kikuchi for Seattle. Kikuchi has not been a good pitcher to back at home in his short career with the Mariners. Also, Houston, this is what I like about them tonight. Despite the fact Jose Altuve is out, Alex Bregman is out, Yordan Alvarez is out, they have all these hitters out, all on the IL. But them now going on the road to Seattle after they were swept by Detroit, they were heavy favorites in all those games. Urquidy is a guy that could go 5 innings. He's not going to go 8 innings for you. I think Houston now, at this short price, could be worth a strong look. The Battle of Ohio, Cleveland and Cincinnati, they meet at Great American Ballpark. I think these teams score runs tonight after the Indians faced 4 pretty good pitchers with the White Sox. Jeff Hoffman, not exactly a great pitcher for Cincinnati. And also for the Reds, they've scored 5 runs or more in every home game this year. And the offense struggled on the road against the Giants and Diamondbacks. I think that they get it going tonight. Probably see some runs scored in that game between the Reds and the Cleveland baseball team. Now, the NBA, let's look back at that from last night. You only had 4 games, and we'll start with the Bucks beating the Hawks. 120-109, Trae Young returned for Atlanta, but the Bucks, they've owned the Hawks. The number was on TNT last night after the game. They've won like 12 of 13 against the Hawks, so Milwaukee's had their way with them, and Giannis still banged up. But the Bucks, they're playing better. They are. Now they're kind of, let's say, getting back to health, but winning at Atlanta, winning at Orlando, these games, you got to grab if you're Milwaukee. And again, they're in total control of the Central. Like, that's not even in question. It's more about your seeding in the East with the way the Sixers and Nets have been playing. The Southeast, you don't really have a runaway team, so Milwaukee's still in that mix for a top 3 spot in the Eastern Conference playoffs. Golden State and Cleveland, we saw them 4 straight years in the finals. We got sick of them, and now it's just another game. The Warriors beat the Cavs 119-101. And Steph Curry, again, another big game for him. The Warriors, look, they're trying to get in that play-in tournament. And they had a little bit of a rough patch. Now they've won at Oklahoma City, won at Cleveland. These are games they can't lose. And Golden State kind of getting back in that mix. It's going to be a really good race to the end. I know that people aren't excited about 7-10 and 8-9 and all of that, but you have a lot of entertaining teams there. Golden State, New Orleans, that are all in that mix for Memphis, that are all in that 7, 8, 9, 10 mix, and Golden State trying to help themselves to get back in it. The Celtics got off to a hot start last night against the Lakers, and they hold off LA 121-113. So after they had a low-scoring game the first time, and LeBron and AD played in that one in Boston. That was a game Kemba Walker struggled, missed that jumper at the end, and they lost by 1 to Celtics back in late January. Now, this time, easy over, 212.5. You look at what they did, 54-55, and then you had a 61 and a 64, but the Lakers dug themselves too big of a hole early. First game back from the road trip, and they end up losing to the Celtics. So Boston now 3-0 on their road trip. That's a pretty good job by them, beating the Nuggets, beating the Blazers, beating the Lakers. So all of a sudden the Celtics have turned things around because they were not playing well, and it all kind of started with that comeback against Minnesota in overtime back at home. The game Jason Tatum had 53 points, and that's kind of turned the Celtics more in the right direction. And again, Boston's not going to catch Brooklyn or Philadelphia in the Atlantic, but at the same time, the Celtics now helping themselves to get more cemented into a spot in the playoffs in the East. Phoenix holds off Sacramento 122-114. The Suns got off to a hot start in this game. Kings made it close to the half, and you see even the Kings were down 1 going to the fourth quarter, and Sacramento was off that bad loss to Washington. The Kings continue to lose, but in this spot, first time they've covered in 4 opportunities as a double-digit underdog this year. And Phoenix, after they cruise past Miami, now the Suns aren't covering these big numbers anymore. They had 2 ATS losses to Houston, and they don't cover against the Kings last night. So watch out for Phoenix as a heavy favorite moving forward. They're right behind Utah for the top spot in the Western Conference, but we see these teams now. You're starting to play not great competition. It's hard to get up for it. It really is. And speaking of which, we transition to today with Utah. They play an early game against Indiana at 3:10, and the Jazz had this run of playing weaker competition, struggling against them, losing at home to Washington. They had a pull away against Sacramento in the last few minutes. They were down 17 to Oklahoma City before they came back to cover. Now you're laying 9.5 against Indiana, where the Pacers, still decent talent there when they're healthy, with Sabonis and Karis LeVert and Malcolm Brogdon. Miles Turner still hurt, but Indiana, you look at that record on the road, 17-12. The biggest problem with the Pacers has been they struggle against the better teams. They're cleaning up against bad teams, but against better teams, they're not beating them. And the Jazz wrap up their homestand. They get the Lakers tomorrow at Staples Center for an afternoon game. So back-to-back afternoon games for Utah, and Indiana who has had a lot of struggles. They won at Phoenix earlier this season. They came close to beating the Lakers, and they melted down in that game. So they've had opportunities against these better teams. Even against Denver on the road, they were up in the third and then totally fell apart. Now it's just about finishing these games for the Pacers, and they're trying to get in that play-in spot. They need to get some wins against good teams, Indiana. You can't keep beating Oklahoma City and Houston and feeling good about yourself. You got to beat better teams than Minnesota, too. Indiana swept Minnesota. That's great, but you got to beat better teams eventually. The Clippers and the 76ers in Philadelphia, that's the ESPN, the first game of the doubleheader. Kawhi Leonard's a question mark for the Clippers. Paul George should come back tonight. They didn't play against Detroit a few nights ago in the buzzer-beating win over the Pistons. And Kawhi's missed the last 3 games with a foot injury, foot problem, foot maintenance, however you want to say it. Philadelphia's 0-3 against the spread their last 3. They just beat Brooklyn. The Nets didn't have Durant. They didn't have Harden. They didn't have Blake Griffin. LaMarcus Aldridge announced his retirement. Kyrie was the only one that played for the Nets in that game. But a revenge spot for the Sixers. They lost at Staples Center earlier this season without Joel Embiid. So now Embiid is back. He's been playing great. He probably won't win the MVP. He's putting up MVP numbers. But the 76ers proved they could win without him, which for me takes away his MVP credentials. Doesn't make him less of a player. It just means that they still found ways to win without him. And the 76ers, look at that, 21-5 at home. So you go from maybe an NBA Finals preview, maybe, we always call everything an NBA Finals preview, to Oklahoma City and Detroit. And Oklahoma City, they have fallen apart of late. They have a lot of guys hurt. They were blown out by Detroit 11 days ago at home. Jeremy Grant's out. Mason Plumlee's out. The Pistons have some guys down tonight. Detroit, I found this number very interesting. 6-0 against the spread this season as a road dog of 5 or less. That could be something to look for with Oklahoma City tonight. New Orleans is at Washington. Lonzo Ball expected back for the Pelicans. Look at that total, 242.5. Washington wrapped up that road trip pretty well, winning at Sacramento, winning at Utah. And the Wizards, they got off to that slow start. Not to say that they'd, compete for the Southeast Division, but if they didn't get off to that terrible start this season, maybe they'd be in the mix for the playoffs. And New Orleans laying 3 on the road. They already beat Washington this year. That's a hell of a high total, 242.5. Charlotte's at Brooklyn. The problem with the Hornets is they have nobody left. Gordon Hayward's hurt. Malik Monk is hurt. P.J. Washington's hurt. LaMelo Ball's been hurt. They just lost 2 at home to the Lakers and Cavs. Now you're getting 12.5 against Brooklyn. Kind of interesting because the last time these teams played was just a few weeks ago. Brooklyn was laying 3 to them. James Harden was out. Durant was out. Brooklyn blew the doors off them. Now you're laying 12.5. And granted, the Hornets have a lot of guys injured. I'm not taking this game tonight, but Charlotte, I feel like they could be worth a look here because Brooklyn has been kind of sloshing through a lot of these games at home as a heavy favorite, where they didn't cover against Houston, they didn't cover against Minnesota, and they're laying all these points, where Charlotte has got to have some motivation here, and Brooklyn, look, they don't win the Atlantic, they'll be fine. I think they know as long as they get their guys back, they get Harden healthy, they get Durant. I mean, Durant's played a little bit, and he sat out the other night, but they get these guys all healthy. Oh, I forgot, and they lost the Lakers 2 at home. So Brooklyn's had a lot of opportunities. I believe it's 1 in 6 ATS this year as a double-digit favorite. So that is not a redeeming quality for the Nets as a big favorite. Orlando and Toronto, they meet in Tampa. I was about to say they meet in Orlando. They meet in Tampa. They're not far. So Orlando goes down I-4 to meet Toronto tonight. And the Raptors, off of the victory over the Spurs a few nights ago, the Magic just beat the Bulls. And the Magic have been a good road team. Now, getting 2.5 is a little dicey there. I mean, I like them more when they're getting like 9.5 against the Bulls, not 2.5. But Toronto hasn't been great. They haven't been even good. They haven't been average. They've been below average this year, but that could be a stay-away game. The Grizzlies and Bulls, Zach LaVine is out for Chicago. That's why they are a 4-point dog at home. I kind of like the Bulls in this one because I think that they show up tonight. Look, they lost the last 4 with Zach LaVine in the lineup. So what does that mean with him out of the lineup? They're not winning with him. And Memphis off the buzzer-beating loss to Dallas a few nights ago. Now they're laying 4. They just beat Chicago at home earlier in the week. And that was a game Chicago was up going to the fourth quarter. Memphis outscored by 15 to beat them. And Chicago, you see their home record's not good, but I think they're worth a shot here getting 4 at home. The Heat and Timberwolves from Minnesota, Miami laying 6.5. The Heat have not been good on the last few games. They beat Portland to start the road trip, but they lost to Denver and Phoenix in blowout fashion. Now they get Minnesota. And the Timberwolves off a couple of losses to the East Elite, to Brooklyn and Milwaukee, both in afternoon games this week. Games got moved due to the civil unrest up in Minnesota, and now a night game for the Timberwolves, but still, they're obviously worst team in the NBA, or one of the 2 worst. Denver's at Houston. Rockets at 14-41. Last time these teams played back in Denver, James Harden was a Rocket. That's how long ago it was. But Denver laying 8.5. It's a little scary because Jamal Murray's out with the ACL tear. Denver just beat Miami in the first game. You know that old rule, the first game without one of your top players. Now they're playing on the road. A Rockets team that's been competitive of late. They just lost to Indiana a few nights ago. Now they're getting 8.5. I don't want to trust the Rockets, but if you look at their home numbers, at least their last few, they have hung around it, and they've been competitive. Portland's at San Antonio. And the Blazers have been a good road favorite this season. 9-3 straight up, 8-4 against the spread. Revenge game for them. They lost to the Spurs at home in blowout fashion back in January. San Antonio has not been good at home. They've lost 4 or 5. And they're coming off of a road trip. Now they come home. They go to Phoenix tomorrow. So quick turnaround for them. They've not been good at home. And they're coming off a loss to the Raptors. Portland's off a couple of home losses to Boston and Miami. I mean, the Blazers got to get their stuff turned around pretty soon. Knicks and Mavs, the Kristaps Porzingis Bowl in Dallas tonight. Mavs laying 5.5 off the buzzer-beating win from Luka a few nights ago. And the Knicks lost to Dallas at MSG back earlier this month. Knicks have been a good road dog. 7-1 ATS last 8. Also, they've covered 7 in a row. So New York, I don't think that's a bad look tonight to take a look at the Knicks. In the NHL, I know we haven't hit on a lot of it on this show, but we still can. The Lightning beat the Panthers 3-2 in overtime last night in Tampa. So the Lightning remain tied atop the Central Division with Carolina, who beat Nashville 4-1. And the Predators still in 4th place of the Central Division. Carolina and Tampa tied. Panthers won back. Philadelphia won in the shootout over Pittsburgh. Sidney Crosby had a goal in that game, but the Flyers, who have struggled, needed that win over the Penguins. Also, Rangers shut out the Devils. Winnipeg wins at Toronto. Austin Matthews was out for the Maple Leafs. How about Buffalo? Look at that, plus 280, winning at Washington 5-2. Sabres, again, last place team in the East Division, but they're playing a little bit better. Bruins knock off the Islanders 4-1. So Boston slows down New York there. We'll see if these teams meet in the playoffs coming up. Detroit over Chicago 4-1. Blackhawks, look at that, laying 160, up 1-0 after 1 and do nothing after that. And Dallas beats Columbus 4-1. Tonight in the National Hockey League, we got only 5 games. Calgary and Montreal. Also, Islanders and Bruins do it again. San Jose at Minnesota. Wild laying 185 there. LA at Colorado. We have a write-up on that game from Matt Blunt, our NHL expert. And he's got an opinion on that game. Look at Colorado laying 320. Vegas laying 240 on the road at Anaheim. It feels like anytime Colorado or Vegas is playing someone that's not each other, they're laying a ton, an absolute ton. So that's the look at what's going on tonight. Want to remind you about our experts, our handicappers at VegasInsider.com. And you can check out our NBA, Major League Baseball, National Hockey League, each of our buy picks pages, our experts, they have picks available for sale tonight. $29.95 for the daily picks. You get every pick from a handicapper of your choice for $29.95 each. And the guaranteed picks, $39.95. Pay after it wins. So you buy the pick. If it wins, it's $39.95, but you were a winner. If it loses, you pay nothing. Simple as that. For our guaranteed picks, only one pick for each sport. So if you want to pick from Alex Smart, it's just one play, best play of the night, $39.95, pay after it wins. And again, our contest that you can check out here on this video, our daily insider contest. You leave a comment at the bottom before tonight's action in Major League Baseball and the NBA and the NHL. You leave a comment with your user ID from VegasInsider.com and make sure you're a subscriber. You leave your ID and your best play of the night, whatever your best winner is of the night, just one. Give us your one pick of the night. It could be first 5 innings. It could be a first half. It could be a first quarter. It could be a full game. It doesn't matter. And leave that in the comments, and we will draw a winner. And obviously, we'll tell you on Monday, but we'll draw a winner, and you will get a week's worth of one handicapper on Vegas Insider, their selections for a week. If you are not registered, that's no big deal because you can do it for free. And the register button is in yellow, big yellow box you can't miss on the homepage. Go to register now, free membership, create an ID and a password and your account, and it's free. And then you can leave on the comments section underneath this video your ID and your play of the night. And you could be in the running to win a week's worth of handicapper selections from one handicapper at VegasInsider.com. So check that out. We appreciate you watching. We appreciate you subscribing, being a part of our community here at VegasInsider.com. We continue to grow our YouTube channel. We have the Daily Insider every day at noon. And also we have our free pick videos, Clippers 76ers. You can check that out on our channel. Also our Major League Baseball picks for tonight. We're going to have Oscar Best Bets coming up next week with Tom Cunningham. And we have just plenty of media that we are pumping out, and we appreciate you being a part of it, even if it's for a little bit. If you jumped in here at the end of the show, we will have a replay of the live stream on the homepage, and you can find it right underneath the main story under Friday's Daily Insider. Click on that link, and you will have today's show in case you hopped in and you missed it. And just make sure you don't do that ever again. We will talk to you again on Monday for the Daily Insider. I am Kevin Rogers. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, best of luck with your picks.